first Friday of the month of July. You know that if you're listening to us live, but you may be or watching us in replay here on Marshfield Media Access, because today I have with me on the first Friday of the month, Marshfield Mayor Bob McManus. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, today we're just coming off of the holiday here around Marshfield. Big fireworks in the fairgrounds last night. A lot of people coming to town, and hopefully everything went smoothly.
Yeah, it appears to have gone smoothly. I mean, if you drove by there on, I believe, Peach, boy, I will tell you what, there were a lot of people out there, which is great. And, I was driving around that whole area there, and you saw different families outside, probably extended families and friends, with little fire pits and, having brats and whatnot. So it was a great family day.
And that's something that we do here every year. It's part of America, I guess, fireworks, and Marshfield takes no back seat here with thanks to Festival Foods.
Right. We're very thankful for what Festival Foods does in bringing that show to Marshfield every year. And you could just see people love that. It was a lot of times you think, it is a 4-day weekend. I'm sure a lot of people took today off, Friday, the 5th. But there were a lot of people in town yesterday, and that fireworks show is a big reason.
A lot of travel they talk about. The gas prices aren't what they once were, but they're not what they once were the other way either on the high end. So right. People are mobile and coming to our community as well as others at this time of the year. It seems like July is vacation month now. Because school, practices start already in early August. Sporting events start before school actually does, so the kids have to do that. Summer school isn't over in June yet, so it's that month when everybody's gone.
Right. On a couple days ago, on the 3rd, that was our 7th. 7 years ago, we moved back here to Marshfield. And when we left California to come there, we filled up and everything, and it was $5.02 a gallon. And the further, east we came, it just kept going down and down. And when we showed up in Marshfield at that time, I believe gas prices were about $3.69 a gallon or something like that. And we were like, this is great. And but of course, in this area, that is very high.
We get used to that. Cost of living is low here, and people get accused of being cheap, but we're used to that. We're right. Used to having a pretty good run here as far as cost of living is concerned.
Yeah, it's very affordable, which is very good. And that was a couple of big things, when we moved back even before this, when we would come back and visit, because cars are originally from here. But I just could not believe that the prices of things were so much lower. And when you walk through a festival or, a pick and save, how red the meat is. I mean, that was just, oh my gosh, what is this? And it just looked really good. And the prices are, they're very good. You go down to Hewitt Meats, it's just beautiful, beautiful meat. We just, you don't have that in California. It's not quite that same red.
No, I suppose when you have to have everything shipped into a major metropolitan area, right. It's not quite the same. But that quality of life was something you talked about here in a survey that was taken not that long ago. The Economic Development Board undertook a community survey.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts on what you learned and what was in that report.
Well, it was, what I was happy about is we tried to get the word out, because I believe last time we did a survey or something, it was like this. It was 300 to 400 people to respond. This time it was close to 1,000. So, and I believe 85% of the people that responded lived in the city, and the other 15%, pretty close by. We saw some things that, for me overall, I was very happy with it, because a lot of the things that we're working on, housing, quality of life issues, we're right in concert with what the public is at. So that was good. We know we have to do something about housing. There are some other quality of life issues. People want things to do. A lot of people said, an overwhelming one was more restaurants. And we would love to get more restaurants. I personally think we have a lot of great restaurants here already. The biggest one is people want a steakhouse. And I think there's a misconception that people have that the city will create a steakhouse or something like that. A steakhouse has to want to come. So we're hoping to get this out through our, Josh Miller Development Services, to get that information out. 2 different steakhouses. But overall, it was the survey was very well done. We had a lot of good comments. It wasn't just answer A, B, C, or D. It was you've got A, B, C, or D, and then leave a comment as well if something was, a big deal for you. So I'd say probably the biggest thing for me personally was housing. You might be shocked to hear this one, but people also mentioned the roads. And so we're trying to do something about that, but that's just, the weather here is just so difficult with expansion and, things freezing and then everything there. So it's very tough on the roads, but at the same time, we're doing everything we can to get these roads done right. But, it was roads and then housing, and we see that in our businesses. We've had our share of closings here in Marshfield, and it wasn't just Marshfield stores. These are big chains. The Shopgoes and the Office Depots. They're not. That's not just a Marshfield thing. They're closing chains. But I will tell you what, we do not have enough of a workforce here for our businesses to keep up with, and so this is why housing becomes so important. Right there behind Walmart. I don't even know if I'm pointing in the right direction, to be honest with you. But I just think it's over there. I don't know. But they are, they're building 244 brand new apartments, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. And we believe that's going to help. That will get more people here. It'll give people here more of a variety of places to live. But the overwhelming thing that people want is housing. And there lies the big unknown for us, because it's like people say, well, we want housing. What type? Because a lot of people say, well, we want affordable housing, or, I want a home that's between $250,000 and $300,000. $250,000 to $300,000 does not fall into the affordable housing category.
Well, they want to pay $75,000 for that.
Right. Everyone wants a good deal. So we've got to get that, we've got to get that figured out.
So the survey was not a rah-rah. This wasn't a best of. This was worded as such to find out what people thought about, and you kind of took some of the things that you were most concerned about and put that on there. How do you think we're doing here, or how do you think we're doing there, kind of a approach?
Right. That's the way I look at it. Different departments are doing different things. This was a great thing for Mackey, because this is kind of confirmed some ideas that they had. So it was great for Mackey and our EDB. It gave us a good blueprint of what the people want. That's the biggest issue that we have in city government is we've got our ideas on what we think is right and maybe the right direction, but we really need to hear from the public to make sure that we're on the right path. And I will say this survey did confirm it. There was a typical thing. Taxes were too high. It was very interesting. Part of it were there was a segment of people that was higher than I thought, that would be okay with higher taxes to get more services and to get the roads fixed. So I thought that was very interesting. A lot of people still think that our taxes are too high. I believe that's a sentiment across the nation for people in property taxes. There are, our taxes are high, but there's a lot of, it's a lot to do snow removal and garbage and police and fire and public works. There's a big cost to that. So, there were some good learning things in there for sure.
Talking about the community survey that was done here by the Economic Development Board, how often do they do that? Was it 3? 5,
well, I believe
6?
The last time they did it was maybe 4 to 5 years ago.
Okay. And it's to steer for the main part. I mean, Mackey's involved because if there's some good things that come out of it, they can use that as an incentive to say to people, we're doing better than most, or this isn't up, and you kind of hide the downs and play up the ups. You know? But it was a steering survey. Do you see it that way?
I think so. That's it confirmed there, and I'm sure it's going to help Mackay go out and attract other businesses to the area. The biggest thing with Mackay, the Marshfield Chamber of Commerce and Industry, is, of course we want to bring other businesses in, but the other thing is we really want to help our businesses that are here to thrive. And maybe that's a different product line. Maybe that's a number of different things. How they handle their financing, how they handle their internet, their graphics, and all different types of things. So I believe it's very, very helpful to Mackay. I know it's very helpful to Josh, the Development Services Director, and the EDB, Economic Development Board, on let's make sure we're bringing the right things. In government, you are never going to be able to please everyone because there are some people that really, really want something, and there are other people that don't want that at all. So you try to do your best job with that.
Talking with Mayor Bob McManus, you can too, live here on AM 1450 WDLB this first Friday in July, 384-2191, 384-2191, talking about what we learned or what was to be gleaned from the community survey that was done. You get a constant reply, but to have to sit down and actually think about it, fill it out, and under the sentences that were given, under the questions as they were worded, find out what it is you need to know from this. So it's a little more quantitative data, shall we say?
Right. It is, and what I was very happy to see is a lot of people took the extra time to really give good comments, and it was a very well done survey. The questions were realistic. We are not looking for this to be to applaud the city or to be cheerleaders or anything like that. We really want to know what can we all do to make this better. And we see a lot of things coming along that way, but the survey was very well done.
And it's hard because sometimes you'll get that certain population that will say, oh, everything stinks and I don't like it here and taxes are too high and I don't like.
Right.
But then again, when you look at the big picture of our community against other communities where businesses and people could locate, there's a certain amount of industry here that will bring people here, and they have certain industry there that will bring, so there's nothing you can do about that. A doctor will come to a clinic. They may or may not go to other clinics. Why? That's between them and their employer as to how much they're going to pay, what their duties will be, and things like that. But outside of that quality of life outside of it is something that we seem to be focusing on or be able to offer, everything from the pool to the Wenzel Plaza to the bike paths to things that are happening around here. We have to kind of keep up with the Joneses to a certain extent.
Absolutely. You have to give people, in order to get workforce here, you have to give them things to do. The trails, you bring that up, was a really big thing. The pool was overwhelming positive on the pool in this survey. So I think that's really good. And you're seeing a lot of things grow, which I think we're going to be on a good track here for the next several years. Our city debt, we're getting that under control. Our debt is lower. We just met, in this coming Tuesday at the council meeting, we're going to be refinancing some bonds and doing some other things it's very smart from a cash flow point of view. And so our debt is good. Now this year, we are in a pickle because of that $1.6 million slip up, I guess you would call it, that had been going on for the last several years. That was just the wrong way to do it. We're going to have to clean that up. But by and large, things are really looking good. Where we see that is the amount of businesses that are opening. And that has been very encouraging to us. If you look in the downtown, you got Mojo's that opened up. You got the Eye Clinic. You got Fairway Mortgages, and they expanded. So many different things. You got the Escape Room coming, Uptown Coffee Company. If your market is shrinking, or if people don't have optimism, you don't see that amount of, first of all, you don't see business openings. You certainly don't see that many people going out and risking hundreds of thousands of dollars on something that they don't think is going to work. So you're always going to have the people that say, well, why is that there? Well, why is that there? It's because this business owner believes that there's a market there. And so that's really what we look at, is what are people actually doing? And, you've got great expansion there. The other thing is businesses all over town cannot find people. So our economy is thriving. And this is what we are trying to figure out, because, how do you do that? How do you hear about, Figgies and Shopko and other businesses that have closed and say things are thriving? A lot of people say, well, is that just cheerleading? It's like, you got to look at the whole market. You can't say that because this one business, or maybe 3 or 4 closed. You can't just look at that. You have to look at the big picture. What's the big picture? Our businesses don't have enough people. Now, 2 things are happening because of that. We're putting more stress on these businesses because in order to get people, they either have to decrease service or increase wage to attract, other people. That becomes a very complicated market. So it's interesting. The market itself is very, very interesting. But I'm very encouraged by all these business openings, and I hope that people will go out and they will support these businesses. I did a post on my Facebook page the other day. I was out in front of Hiller's, because you look at what Hiller's, did. Every year they go around, they put the flags out in front of people's yards, and they have a big tent there, and they bring in all kinds of citizens within the city volunteer to go out and do that. And Hiller's feeds all those people. It's got it all coordinated. It's great. We as citizens need to support those businesses so that they could stay there, because our local businesses, the local businesses, the Hillers and the Mojos and the clinic, all of our local businesses, those are the businesses that contribute to our kids, soccer teams and football teams and gymnastics and pool and baseball. Those are the businesses that we really need to support, because they're supporting us. And the reality is that people could sit at home at night when they're watching their shows and order things online. So that's a very difficult thing.
There's trouble to brew in a lot of industries all over because of the commerce that's being done via online. I can't blame it all on that. There are some pretty smart business people who have figured out a way to go around that, but not everybody can. I mean, it's just, you're up against a hard place. There's just no wiggle room to go from time to time. These national store closings, that's, like you said, nothing we can do about that. Mm-mm. You and I talked about, I guess, the last program here. Since that time, there's been a reversal on the KC property, which we thought was not going to be. And now all of a sudden the guy comes around and says, yeah, I guess I'm going to do it anyway. And everybody went, huh? According to what we talked about, that had pretty much been a dead issue for a while.
Yeah, that was shocking. And I believe that is the way that business is changing. That the person that bought the KC hotel, or the property, is going to put up the hotel, but they originally, when they came for to put up a TID and look for TIF financing and whatnot and an incentive, they were under a different LLC, and then they decided after everything was done they were going to do it, and then they decided, no, we're not. We thought, okay, that property is still going to be for sale. Well, it was still for sale. My understanding is after a couple of weeks, a different LLC purchased the property, and nobody knew who it was. Well, LLC, you don't necessarily know who it is. And that particular person didn't go through the same real estate agent here, had a completely different real estate agent out of the city. So the whole thing went till about, I got a notice of maybe a couple days before that the person that was there was the same person before, but under a different LLC. And now they're coming back, and their intent is to build the hotel. It's a very interesting way of doing things. You don't understand why it needs to be so quiet. However, at the same time, an independent business owner or purchaser can do really whatever they want.
It, to me, was like when Gorman was going to buy the city hall. There were contingencies upon doing that. That fell through. Mm-hmm. They said we're a no-go. This felt the same. It fell through. We're a no-go. But they felt enough that there was still, if we can't do it with your help, we'll do it by ourselves.
Right. Anytime, in real estate, anytime transactions go too long, that means there wasn't enough work done up front. In the old city hall, that transaction, I don't believe that ever had any chance of going through. It was way too long of a time frame, and businesses need to acclimate. A great example of a business acclimating and growing in the city was absolutely a form of brilliance, and I hope that other businesses see what took place, and that's Nuts Deep. Right? You look at Nuts Deep. They're always packed. You go in there and they get awards for their burgers, and it's good service. And they've got different, all different types of people there, age-wise, and it's always packed. And that's a really, really good thing. So what did they do? They knew, how do they expand? When you've got a business that's this big, then there's only so many plates that you can serve and whatnot. And they knew that there was a market for their product. So what did they do? They got a shop less than half a mile from their current location, and you can go pick up the same burger, and now I understand they have roasted chicken and whatnot from there. So now what are they doing? They're in a very, very small town, and they literally doubled their capacity. They have the same product, but they saw a different sector to go after. And they knew that their product that was good enough would absorb it, wouldn't compete with it. That's a type of business mindset that I think you're going to see more and more businesses go to, is that maybe we can get a bigger piece of the pie. At the CVB, we just realized that a Convention and Visitors Bureau, there's awful lot of people that come to Marshfield, and they said that, they've got statistics to show this, that when somebody comes in for the day, they spend on average $85 per person. So if a family of 4 comes in, whatever that is, $350 or something like that is what they're going to spend in the city. If they stay overnight, then that goes from 85 or whatever up to like 183, something like that. So the businesses that are here, the thought process is, how much of that can I get? What do I have to do in the product or service that I sell to get part of that pie? And I think you're going to see more and more people that are going to go along that mindset. You look at Mojo's. They're the first one to have their, the folks out dining on the sidewalk, and there are others that have taken that toll. You have to take that risk. But the other thing is, when we see these businesses, for those of us that are consumers, when we see these businesses taking those risks, we got to go frequent them to help them. And maybe if you don't want to sit outside for whatever reason, maybe give them a different idea or a different suggestion. Maybe they'll take it up, and maybe they'll take that and work with it.
One of the things I'm hearing you say, talking with Mayor Bob McManus, by the way, this first Friday of the month of July, that if you're listening live, if you're watching on Marshfield Media Access here, we're in the studios at WDLB this first Friday of the month. What I'm hearing you say is that around the city, a lot of franchises have closed. A lot of corporate things have closed. But the small business owner is starting to pick up, not in that magnitude. They can't fulfill those big stores, they're sitting empty because there's nothing that magnitude. But the little guys around here are the ones who are picking up, and that's what makes us unique. Everybody can have a franchise, but not everybody can do what the little guys are doing around here, and that's what makes Marshfield, the flavor of, shall we say.
Absolutely. Merle Norman down there on Central and downtown, they've got a great, they do obviously, makeup and whatnot, and then they've got a great clothing line. I'm one of those guys that waits until December 20th or just before my wife's birthday to go in, and when I walk in, I've got the blank stare, and they know, and they're like, come on over here, she will like this. I believe that's where businesses like that really can thrive. You look at this, you've seen this happen all over. The new product line out there, the CBD oil and the CBD this and that. And, a year ago, you had the health food store that carried some line. And then it really started growing. And then it, all of a sudden now it's everywhere. Even at the family video, you can get a pizza and get a video and pick up a little CBD while you're there too. So now there's I bet probably 5 or 6 different CBD stores. So what they're going to have to figure out is, now that there is more of them out there, how do they create their bit of the market share? And I think it's just going to take more and more innovation.
It's everywhere, and that's a tough one. You made a good point with that. In other words, if everybody has the product, why do I go one place instead of another? I mean, I can pick it up in the grocery store or going out of line. I don't have to drive to a shop, a place. They were smart. They put it right at the end of the cap there. As you're going out here, grab a bottle of it. And
Yep.
So the convenience is one thing. The price is another. But there is an atmosphere sometimes, and I think that's what Nuts had.
Absolutely. You bring up a great thing. When we had a couple of those different business discussions where I brought together the CVB and the Mackey and the EDB and all the different initials of the different places, and we're having these great discussions, and really, you hit it on the head. Why do people choose one store over the other? I mean, a burger is good, but it's meat. And I like meat and cheese and ketchup, right? But what people want is exactly what you said. It's the experience. When you go to a certain restaurant, what is the experience? When you go into a certain store, what is the experience you get? I know when I go into Merle Norman, I'm going to walk in there with a blank stare. They're going to take care of it. That's the experience. You can't get that at just every store. And that's what our businesses really need to understand. One thing that came out of that big meeting is we're going to be starting a cable show on our cable channels, Marshfield Media Access, 989, 990, and 991. The name of the series is Experience Marshfield, and it's going to be everything. We're going to get, business owners, people that have lived here forever, all different types of people to talk about, why do they live in Marshfield? What's unique about Marshfield? Why have they chosen to live there? In the survey it showed that a lot of people live here because great place to raise kids, good school system, and jobs. Those are some really, really good things about our community. No community is perfect. Every community has issues. But those are some really, really solid things. When you say that, it's a great place to raise kids, great schools, great atmosphere, small town feel, those are really, really good attributes that you don't get everywhere.
Well, you either are or aren't.
Right.
I mean, the big city can't tell you we get small town feel. There are some who market themselves that way. We're a big city with a small town feel.
Right.
And you try to do it, your marketing or however your visitors bureau wants to portray themselves, and your Chamber of Commerce too. But this is one of those and we're not without problems. We're like everywhere else, between the stores closing, drugs happening, things, people are people. I swear that they'll tear up the weeds out of the friggin' sidewalk if they thought they could get off on it, I mean, some people will that's the way they are. The OxyContin problem happened because some people don't take them because it makes me feel weird. Other people say, give me, because it makes me feel weird.
Right.
Well, that's just the difference in people. So you're never going to please everybody. But this survey kind of gives you a little bit of a steer. It's 1,000. It's not everybody. There are some left behinds, and there are some well-to-dos, and you try to. Marshfield is known for both. There's a lot on both ends.
Yep.
And so how do we meet in the middle here that gets everybody involved is what you're kind of looking for.
Yeah, it's absolutely what we're looking for. And in this thing is you've got to be able to take a look at your reality of where you are now and then project, out maybe a year or 2 or 3. As an example, my wife, Cara, and I, just yesterday, we went and got a new puppy, a golden doodle. The name is Boomer. 9 weeks old, great little puppy. Now, I'm not thinking right now how great it's going to be to raise a puppy for the next 4 months. I'm not that excited about it, but don't tell her. We'll keep it between you and I.
Your secret is safe with me here.
But what I'm looking at is a year or 2 down the road when our other dog, Lucy, and Boomer were sitting out on the deck, and we're just out having, some brats and just enjoying things. That's really the way I look at the city, is we can take this survey and the great people that are here. There's a lot of awesome people in Marshfield. There's a lot of people that care so much. They're visionaries and love Marshfield. We know where it's at right now, but let's just continue to get better and better and better.
Listening to and watching AM 1450 WDLB this first Friday in July on Marshfield Media Access, channel 989 on your digital charter tier of channels, or you could be watching us from Marshfield Media Access, Facebook, or on do we have YouTube channel yet?
It's coming.
Are we available on that yet?
We're using Facebook right now.
Okay, we're still on Facebook right now, which brings up another point. You're going to do the government meetings there too?
We are, that's
Live?
Next up. First off, I'm very, Tom, our communication director, and David have done a great job in getting cable back up. It was, oh my gosh, the nightmare of dealing with Charter on that and getting that up and running was really something that I'm glad that, they had the expertise to really get that put together. So we're happy about that. And the next step now that we're bringing actually to council on Tuesday is to do Facebook Live, so that a lot of people don't have cable, but a lot of people have Facebook. So we'll be able to get that to more people that can see what's going on.
Do you need a motion, a second, and a vote to do that?
Well, there were concerns on how this takes place, and this will be one of the things that we're going over on Monday night is the electronic device communication that all the aldermen, myself, Steve, Hap, the city attorney, that everybody has. So if the concern is if people are watching on Facebook and then they would then text or send an instant message to their alderman, and their alderman goes down and reads it, that's now an open record. So then you have an issue with that. So the council first needs to decide, what is going to be, how are we going to handle it, during the day or during a meeting. Maybe we have to put our phones off or where we can't view them, because you can't have, otherwise that is a meeting and that is an outside influence. So one of the things I believe that we're looking to do is make it to where when it is Facebook Live, there are no comments coming back at that time. And then right after the meeting, then, communication director would just put it out there and then people could comment or do whatever they want, but it won't influence an alderman.
Well, you're using Facebook as the medium because of its popularity.
Right.
But on the other hand, you could do that, and I think the city has, through its website in the past, streamed live, where then those comments would be, how would I say, recordable. Mm-hmm. They could become part of the record if you did it that way. But because you're using that medium as Facebook, then you have to be careful that those would either become part of the record or they would be, as you said, turned off and disallowed until the meeting is over.
Right. And so the aldermen need to decide how do they want their electronic devices to be used so that there's not, this was a very big issue, not here, but in Madison. There was a big blow up down there. What was happening there with devices is aldermen or council members were texting each other during a council meeting. Well, now that's an open records violation. So, because is the public allowed to see that? The public should be allowed to see everything. And so if somebody is communicating with an alderman or the mayor by way of instant message that's not available for everybody to see, you run into an open records violation there. So we're going to get that, figured out. That the electronic device issue goes just before the Facebook issue. Everybody wants to have more communication. So this will be another medium where we'll be doing Facebook Live, and then my guess would be the YouTube channel would be right that. So then realistically, then those meetings are open to everybody. Still, the best part is when you come to the meeting, because on a Facebook remark or something like that, which is fine, you do. Everybody has freedom of speech to like or dislike a discussion or comment or someone. That's always encouraged. That's fine. But if you want to get your point heard, you come to the council meeting. That really does sway votes. That really does. It's so helpful. If people have a big issue, come to a council meeting and voice your concern during the public comments section.
Talking with Mayor Bob McManus here. You can comment right now. We give you an opportunity, or he does, once a month here, the first Friday in each month here at 384-2191, 384-2191. But yeah, having interpersonal communication amongst people who are of a government entity is a tough one. If I've got a booger or a bat in a cave, as they say, please text me, but then again, right. I don't want everybody to know.
Right.
And so, but, that's personal, but personal over, look at what happened with the Facebook page on the Customs and Border Patrol. They were doing their thing and talking, and people got onto that and going, holy cow, these guys are pretty crass and pretty callous here on what they're doing. And it blew up in their face to a certain extent.
Right.
But you're a public person, you're paid for by, and you're under the auspices of public information.
Right.
So you want people to participate, but we're in a technical world where you still got to show up. We can't allow people to just be making zingers from worldwide here.
Right.
And then come into changing the course of a meeting.
Right. And it's also very important because on Facebook, that'll hit people outside of Marshfield. Maybe they used to be a resident of Marshfield, and now they're influencing, a council member. So it's not really that you always want that dialogue. That's certainly fine to do, but when it's during a meeting is when you really run into an issue. So, for instance, people come up to me all the time, and I'm sure they do the aldermen too. Maybe they're at a festival or the farmer's market or something like that, and they'll have those private discussions. Those are fine because it's not during a meeting. It's not there's no influence there. Maybe they might say, hey, look, we have a real issue, in which the alderman or myself would say, come to the council meeting if it's that big of an issue. Sometimes people just want an explanation. And my experience has been 98% of the time when people vent their frustration, they'll take a couple minutes to do it. You acknowledge it and you give them well, this is why, or this is what it is, or let me look into it. 98% of the time that solves the situation, which is good. So we just got to get that figured out.
There have been, though, when I say ways of doing business as a council, do you have an opinion as an alderman and then go find somebody to come in and talk, or do they come to you with an opinion? You say, yeah, that's a good idea, and I'll come and talk.
That it could go both ways. I'm not aware of anyone where the alderman went out to, or myself went out to people and said, hey, come up and bring this up. So let's, you could put a little gravy on the potatoes. And I've not been aware of that. I do know of instances of the 8th and Hemlock situation, where this was a year ago, where people were they were upset about that being sold to some folks. Well, they went out and, we probably had 20 of them show up to go through public comments. They basically all said the same thing. Don't do it because of safety. But you had all those people there. It started a great discussion because the next day I went over to that whole area, went door to door talking with the people, and stood outside houses, watched traffic go by and things like this. It was a good conversation. But I'm not aware of anybody that was, for lack of a better term, used as a prop to come and to do that. I don't think I'm sure it happens in some councils, maybe in bigger cities, but we haven't had that here yet.
As long as you brought that particular issue up, it's going to return again, I think, on your agenda. Tell us what happened and where you're going with this.
With
the 8th and Hemlock.
The 8th and Hemlock, well, what's interesting is that the council decided to table it for a year, and that was back in October. And then Mr. Zaleski in District 7, that's his district, wanted to bring it back up for discussion. And then at the last minute there, he decided to pull it off to get more information. I know that there was some concern with other aldermen on why are we bringing, we said, let's wait until after October. And the main reason is, I think many of the aldermen would rather wait and Mr. Zaleski wants to bring it up as a discussion point. So, and the aldermen have every right to say when they go on items for future agendas, and that was one that he brought up. He'd like to discuss this or bring it back. They have every right to do that. But I think most of the people on the council would be of the idea of let's wait and see the campus master plan that comes from the middle school, to see what they're doing over there, to see what traffic patterns are going to be before we go entertain that because it's already been brought to our attention that there's a safety issue there. And from what I've heard with what they're going to do over there, the soccer field and the track, there shouldn't be the same traffic patterns that they had when they were there with, football games when Beal Stadium is packed. So I think that's going to be where a lot of the aldermen are at. But certainly okay to bring it up.
Well, see if I've got this right here from what I've been told. The 8th and Hemlock property, it was a empty lot or two?
Two. It was three.
Three to the south of Beal Stadium, which has been empty lot for years and was used for parking. Everybody presumed that it was part of the school district when in actuality it was owned by the city. At the time the Beal Stadium was now decommissioned and the new stadium will be used, there was some concern that the city was going to sell that for development, and the neighbors weren't all that enthused for whatever reason. I don't know the details on why they weren't because I didn't listen to their comments, but that's the proposal, is that the people who are there do not want that developed, and the city wants to allow put on a tax rolls and the developer put up some housing in that situation. Is that
right? Well, when we put out an RFP there, we only got one response of somebody that wanted to come buy it, and that was from Habitat from Humanity, and they wanted to put up two. I don't remember if it was 2 lots or 3 lots, but let's just say 2. And that's what kind of got the area residents there kind of unglued of, okay, if we've got 2 new lots there, and that means you're going to have driveways coming out there on 8th, you're going to have more cars. Does this create more of a risk that's there? And they said, we've had, there's people that go speeding by, and there's people. This is one thing crazy that we learned, is some of the people that live right there on Hemlock, there were people coming to see the game that would not only park in front of their driveway, but actually pull into their lot. And, I said to them, did you call come have these people towed? That pulled into your driveway without your permission? For me, that's an easy one.
Well, they thought it was Lambeau Field, where people stand out there and charge you $5 to park on their lawn.
Charge you $20 for.
20 probably. Now.
Right, yeah.
Long time
and so that was just shocking to me, and many of the residents there, I think rightly so, were concerned that this is going to do that, and they said on, what is that, Peach or not Peach, Palmetto, people are speeding through, and so that's a safety concern. So then we've got the police came over and they took a look, and they didn't see too much of an area of concern. But I will tell you what, Tom Turchy, that is one smart fella. He has got accident reports, because that's how the city really takes a look at safety. Is if you've got a hot point, you're going to know it by okay, if we start having 4 or 5 accidents somewhere, we got to do something's not right. And there had not been, a traffic collision there for 15 years. So that's why nothing had been done before. So these are concerns that the people over there in that area had. And I believe that there are some people on the council that, even though Mr. Zaleski can certainly bring it up, that's his right. Any alderman can, we might say, we'll table this for a year. An alderman has a right to bring it up again the next month. I just don't know that the discussion will go anywhere because we really haven't seen any, we really don't know yet what the middle school is going to do with that area, how it's going to impact enough.
Talking with Mayor Bob McManus, you can too here this first Friday in July, 384-2191, 384-2191 on the Insight program live on AM 1450 WDLB. AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program here winding down for this first Friday in the month of July with Mayor Bob McManus coming to you live on WDLB. You know that. Otherwise, you could be watching us at any time in the future, who knows when, on Marshfield Media Access. It'll be played throughout the month of July on Channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier. Mayor Bob McManus offering his access coming up here. Let's go to the phone. Good morning. You're on with the mayor.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. First of all, positive thank you for all the work you're doing for Marshfield. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I do have one question. I don't know if it's anything you can do, and it's a question that's come up for quite a while, is we go out of town quite often, and on the way we see gas prices anywhere as low as $2.52, $2.59. And here in Marshfield and surrounding close areas, we have anywhere from $2.74 to $2.79. Why is there such a big difference? Why are our gas prices usually higher than, a lot of other places that are, within an hour or so away? I was just curious about that. Like I said, I know it's been coming up, but just wondering what the answer might be, why we are that much higher.
It's a great question. Thank you for calling in. It's a great question. It's one that we've been asked a lot. The city doesn't control those prices. Those are independent businesses that, and they're all within a penny or two of each other. I really can't tell you why the prices would be higher here than they are just over in Point or in Auburndale or Colby. I don't know.
So
there's nothing that the city can do to regulate prices because we don't determine those. Those are independent businesses. Similar to if you go into a restaurant and this person has their hamburger is $4 and then another one, it's the same quarter-pound burger or whatever. Theirs might be $8. The city really doesn't get into that. I will tell you this. I understand their frustration. I came from California and in El Segundo, California, which is just right next to LAX. That's where the Chevron station was, and the Chevron oil refinery was there. And actually, those big tankers would come in and offload about a mile off of the shore, right into the refinery for Chevron, and then right there in El Segundo, at Sepulveda or Pacific Coast Highway in El Segundo, which is a very big major intersection there was a big Chevron gas station there. And they were at least 8 to 10 cents higher than other gas stations right in the same city. And I'm just thinking, my gosh, why is it so much more expensive when you're right here? But when you go 30 miles inside the city there, it's at least a dime to 15 cents cheaper. It made no sense. You had no transportation cost. But that's a long story to just say that basically those are those independent businesses. The city doesn't get involved in regulating prices. We really can't.
Okay. That makes sense, and I understand that, but if you maybe kind of look at it this way, we don't, but some people might think, well, I can go to such and such and fill up my car, my truck, whatever it might be, or an extra gas can for 15 cents less, so I'm going to go out of town and do that, even though it costs money to drive out of town. But as long as I'm out of town, I'll stop at Point, Wassa River, and eat. So it's almost like sending people business that should stay in Marshfield for the restaurants and gas and whatever. It's almost like sending them out of town. You know what I'm saying? People think they're saving some money, but you're driving there, but there's more out of Marshfield. So when the vote or the survey came as far as having more shopping and eating in Marshfield, people are going out of town maybe and also filling up with gas. So we're sending business out of Marshfield. So I'm thinking if there's anything that can be done with these businesses to keep their prices lower a little bit, more competitive, it might keep people in Marshfield, and they will also eat here and shop here, kind of. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a domino effect.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that's one of the things that we are concerned with, is that when people do leave the city to go to, they'll go up to Weston to the pool or the splash facility there, or they'll go up to Wausau and they do all their shopping there. I think you're right, probably stop and get gas. It is frustrating because we are trying to do more to be economically, do more economic development for our residents here. I can tell you that if there are, and I'm sure there's a segment of the folks that would leave and go to Auburndale or Colby or wherever, Spencer, to drive all that way and drive back out of principle of why is it so much higher? It just makes no sense. Mm-hmm. Realistically, it would cost them more to do that, but out of principle, that is the thing. But right. I do appreciate your call.
Right. So, I mean, if there's anything, I know exactly, again, what you're saying with these businesses, but maybe they need to look at that if they want to be within keeping things in Marshfield as a business to keep things here. They need to change too. So Absolutely. Anyway, I just thought I'd ask you that and get some reasoning, and I understand, but like you said, little frustration. So Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, here on AM 1450 WDLB's Insight, thank you for participating. Mayor Bob McManus, yes.
I just want to say, just before we go, we do have an opening on the Utility Commission, which is we're doing great at keeping the utility rates low, but if anybody would want to get information on getting on the Utility Commission, please call Amy Krogman at City Hall, 715-486-2002. And send her an email so I can get it on and see if there's any interest at all in getting on that commission.
All right, thank you.
Your hometown radio station, AM 1450.